Greetings and salutations and welcome to Illegitimate Legends. My name is Artima, bringing you another show and another build. This week we are doing an AP/DPS Cho'Gath build. It's a hybridized build that really looks at one aspect of Cho'Gath which I personally feel is a little underused, even though it's a toggle and you don't turn it off. Those are Vorpal spikes. Vorpal spikes are really good. So this build is, as I mentioned, all about the Vorpal spikes. It's an attack speed to get the Vorpal spikes more often, and it's an AP to get your Vorpal spikes doing as much damage as they can. In the end, this is with Vorpal spikes at level 5 and with about finished item build, you will have 2.2 attack speed and about 200 damage per person, or for each person who gets hit with your spikes, they take about 210 damage. That is, of course, affected by magic resist, and you've got 216, I think, physical damage yourself. And that's your AD, so of course you take armor off that. Means you're doing a multi-pronged damage type. You're mixing your damages with Vorpal spikes and your auto attacks. You've got some very powerful DPS, and because Vorpal spikes hit multiple people, you're still useful in a team fight as opposed to just tearing down one person. Your weaknesses are, of course, the fact that you're squishy. Now, yes, Cho'Gath can get a bit of tankiness behind him. He does get 900 extra health with max stacks of Consume, or Feast, or whatever they call it nowadays. It's Feast. Why did I say Consume? Regardless, 900 extra health from that. That really helps, but in the end, no matter what you do, unless of course you take away from your potential in other areas, you simply don't have the resistances for the health that you have to be all that amazing. Yeah, you will be relatively resistant to poke, but when a powerful nuke comes your way, it's still gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt a lot. You really don't want it to happen, so avoid that if at all possible. The problem with this build is its lack of close. Now, yes, Cho'Gath has a lot of ability to close. You knock them up with Rupture. You scream at them while you run in. That silences them as they come down, and because Rupture also has a slow effect, you've got plenty of opportunity to then close the distance and start beating up on them. But once that's done, if they've got Flash, they've pretty much escaped you. So I would always take Ghost on this build, even if you don't normally. It's a must-have for me in LoL in general. I prefer Ghost to Flash, but that's just my preference. In the end, you need it for the extra close. I also make sure to get a Hextech Gunblade, because that Gunblade's slow, very useful. You can use it again to try and close the distance on an escaping enemy champion so that you can keep hitting them and keep doing the damage that you really need, because otherwise what's the point of being a DPS? It's kinda why you're there. Not much more to this build. You want to be knocking them up whenever you can. That can prove difficult if you suck, like me, but what you gonna do? If you don't suck like me, you'll be getting knock-ups often. You'll be able to then run in, beat them up very quickly, because it's a lot of damage. When you get right down to the numbers, Cho'Gath with this build can deal a substantial amount of damage very quickly. You've also got decent lifesteal and spell vamp, so you can sustain yourself a little bit. And then finish them off with a good old feast, and walk out. Due to his health issues, he doesn't stand up well in team fights. He can do a lot of damage, but if you're being focused, which can happen because people will notice that you've got no resistances, you basically ruined there, but those are the risks. It is a glass cannon build. A lot of my builds are, because in the end that's how I play. But you can make up for it with some fantastic scores I'm gonna have to say it is best in the mid-game. The late game does get a bit unpleasant for this AP DPS Cho'Gath build, but with good play, you're still very useful. And there is nothing scarier than popping Surge and tearing down a tower like it isn't even there with a fully stacked Cho'Gath. That monster is huge. So how about the build itself? The items and their order. I start with boots and 3 health potions because you need boots. The meta, I feel, at least as far as I can tell, seems to suggest that everyone get boots first, and with this build, because you need the clothes, you don't want anyone moving faster than you. So boots first, very, very important. Then you want a Nash's Tooth. I get Stinger first because the attack speed's slightly more important and more useful to you early game than the AP. Then I get a Hextech Gunblade because Nash's Tooth is great. That's got me some AP, some cooldown reduction, and some attack speed. Now I want to buff up my actual damages and my survivability, so Hextech Gunblade. From there, I get a Gwynso's Rage Blade because that's just a great item for any hybrid build. And the last 2 items, I kind of pick and chose a bit. Sometimes I got Wit's End, sometimes I got Malady, sometimes I got Phantom Dancer. It's really up to you for that last little item. As for abilities, you want your Vorpal Spikes first. Whatever else is up to you. I recommend Rupture and Feast when you can get them, but that's just me. This has been AP Cho'Gath, AP DPS Cho'Gath. AP Cho'Gath is a very different and very legitimate build. Thank you, and good night.